Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, Candid Convos with Anna B. Today I have my lovely guest, Bushle. Hi Bushle.
Hey.
FYI, last year when I did the marriage series, Bushle was in it. And this year again, when I'm doing the marriage series, Bushle is in it. So girl, thank you so much for always coming through. Whenever I need you. I don't know if I bully you as a little sister, but I'm just glad. I'm just glad you say yes. Okay, so today we're going to talk about a subject that people don't always want to talk about, and it can affect a lot of marriages in so many ways. So we're going to be talking about loss of pregnancy and loss of a newborn baby. And Ushe will be helping us with this. So I'll allow her to introduce herself and what she does so you get to understand what I'm talking about.
Cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Bushle or Rejoice, but I actually prefer to be called Bushle. I am, how old am I again? 26, 27. I've been forgetting this year. I don't know what's going on, but I'm 26, turning 27. I am a registered nurse, and my specialty for the last 3 going on to 4 years is neonatal intensive care. So I deal with a lot of premature babies, and then I also deal with newborn babies that have issues and all that kind of stuff, or babies in general with like different issues. So yeah, that's what I do.
All right, thank you, Bushe. So can you tell us a little about it? Because I know one of the things that happens when you get married is obviously you want to have a baby at some point. For a lot of people, I know there's some who don't want to have babies, but for those who do, I know sometimes you can plan to have a baby and you obviously think that it's going to go a certain way and it doesn't. And that's why you end up having preterm babies. You know, how has it been when you see people bring in their babies and when you are taking care of them? What are some of the things you get to see that we don't see from the outside?
To be honest, like it's pretty rough because like I think you see a part of life that in a way like it doesn't really make sense. So what we deal with, excuse me, is, or at least what I've been dealing with in the past 3 years, is babies that are born to either moms with different issues. So a mom could be like, older moms with previous congenital issues, or moms with diabetes, mom with hypertension, preeclampsia and all that stuff. All the things that usually lead to babies being born early, or sometimes moms just get really sick, or baby gets sick and distressed and then they're born early. So what I've seen in the last few years is babies that are born from maybe like 23 weeks. So if we're taking it into context, like a full pregnancy, it'll be like 40 weeks, sorry. So born at 23 weeks. And so they have like a really long journey from then on up until 40, maybe plus weeks. So we help them with, we call it transition to ex-utero life. So help them with their breathing, because obviously they shouldn't be breathing. Mom was breathing for them. We help them with their fluid balances, because they were not supposed to be doing that by themselves. We keep them nice and warm and humidified, and just, like try to create a womb environment outside of a womb. So some of the interesting things to see that the tiniest people that we deal with, maybe the one I have dealt with was around 450 grams. So like literally like super tiny. Like if you think your average apple that you would get from the store, that's like the size of someone's head, that you're dealing with. And like they don't weigh much more than a regular little water bottle. So they're very, very tiny people. And they just need a lot of love, a lot of care. And then on the other spectrum, you have your massive buffers that are over 5 kilos. Some with lots of health issues as well. So we do that, help them transition, and then we support their whole family, because it's really hard, like having a a child unexpectedly be born early. There's a lot of grief that goes on. You grieve because sometimes they're born before you even do your bump shots, you know, like your maternity photo shoot. So people have to grieve that they didn't get to have that. They grieve to have a full-blown pregnancy. They grieve to have a normal postnatal, you know, type life. You know, you don't get to just sit there and breastfeed your baby. Sometimes you can't even hold your baby for weeks on end because they're so unstable. So it's a very cool place to work, but you know, it helps you to be very sensitive to people's situations, people's needs and stuff like that. So I'm very grateful that I'm working there, and I just thoroughly enjoy it. I think it's the best place to work, really.
Thank you so much for explaining that. There's some terms that you mentioned that I was like, well, okay, but I it's the basic of what you are saying. And thank you for sharing that, because there's so many things that we want to happen when we get pregnant, and unfortunately it doesn't always go the way that we want. And I think sometimes as society, we are not sensitive to the needs of someone who's going through pregnancy when it comes to marriage, even when you have a spouse, or when it comes to family that are around. And I thought this year when I do the marriage series, I wanted it to be different, to share how other relationships can affect a marriage, especially when it comes to having a baby. You know, especially like when you're talking about how a mom can give birth and she doesn't get to hold her child. And no one takes you through the process of how that is going to be emotionally, right? And sometimes you can hope that your baby will live, and unfortunately they don't. And I know you went through the journey of losing a pregnancy, and it was so hard for you, and it still is, because you're still on that journey. And I was hoping that you can share a little about it, on what you're comfortable sharing with us, so that you can help another mom who's probably gone through the same journey as you.
Yeah, cool. So I think I'll probably backtrack a little bit before I get to the part of the actual loss. So I think I've always known that I had, like, you know, gynae issues and stuff like that. Some inherited, and then others, I guess, just popped up on their own, which another, I don't know what you would call this, PSA. If in general something seems off in your body, just go to the GP, go see your gynae early. You don't have to wait till you're like at a childbearing age or you're ready to have kids. Just go. You know, it doesn't harm anyone. It's important to just go and get those things checked out if anything is out of the norm. So I was dealing with a lot of things that would be called normal, but obviously they're not normal. Like, you know, if you're having painful periods and all that stuff, that really shouldn't be the norm. So that's what I was dealing with. And then I got to a point where I thought I should go see my gynae, because I had been so that they could just like keep an eye on things, you know, because I wasn't ready to have kids yet, obviously. And I just started dating when I initially went to see my gynae. So they were just keeping an eye on me, making sure everything was working the way that it should, and I wasn't having any more issues. So then we started thinking that at some point, you know, maybe over a year, I think, after we got married, we're like, well, at some point we're gonna start thinking about having kids. So me knowing that I had underlying gynae issues, I was like, let me just go have that checked out to see that if we need to start planning for things, we get that into place before we actually start, you know, trying to have kids. And also in that time, I was like on this health kick, because I was trying to learn everything that I needed to learn to prepare my body to be able to have. So we went to my gynae. So my gynae ran a few tests on myself, my husband, and they were like, look, the way that it is right now is I wasn't supposed to get pregnant up until I get surgery to check for, we were looking for endometriosis at this point. So to look for endometriosis and then to get rid of, I think there was like a small polyp and maybe some cysts and fibroids. So they said, let's go in there, let's have a look, see what's in there first before you guys even try. Because if you do, you're gonna lose that pregnancy. So we're like, okay, cool. So that was in May of 2021. So my gynae, and we made a plan that I was gonna have surgery before we start officially trying to have kids. So then that was May, and then in June, God was like, nope, you are having this child.
No way. Yeah.
I know. I was like, okay, like literally a month after we've been told to wait. I realized that like I had missed my period. So I was like, this is a bit strange, because normally like I was very aware, like because of my issues, you know, you have to pay attention that you ovulate, that. So I was just like, oh, it's been a while. And then the funny thing was I was just having like this little strange symptoms that normally for me it would be very odd. Like, you know, like I'm plant-based. Someone, I don't know, vegan, plant-based. I like to say plant-based. But I woke up this particular day, like just straight from waking up, I was starving, and I was like, I really would like some rice and chicken stew. I really wanted chicken. And I was like,
I'm sure Luna was like, what's going on?
yeah. And I was like, I just really, really wanted chicken. And then I'm like, you don't even eat chicken. Why would you want it? So then I was like, yeah, my period is not here. Let me just take a pregnancy test. So I found one randomly in the house. And then I took it, and then I looked at it, and I was like, oh, that's negative. And then just like threw it in the bin. And then I think I looked at it before it was even time. And then I just kept it in the bin, literally. And then I went about my business. And then I was like doing the kitchen and all that stuff. And then after a while, I was like, I don't know, something came into my mind. It was like, just go have another look again. So then I went, and I was like, there was 2 lines there. I don't know. And then I started freaking out. Yeah, like I was very, very excited, obviously, because I'm like, they said we wouldn't be able to get pregnant. And here we are. I got excited, obviously, but then very scared because we weren't ready at the time. And then they had told me that it would end in a miscarriage. So there was like also that part that like made me a bit scared. So, but anyway, I got excited. I didn't tell Lunga actually. I just kept it to myself. I went to work, acting normal. And also at work, I was like huffing and puffing. I was just so out of breath, like just all the time. That was another symptom. And I was like craving lollies. It was like just bizarre things that would normally happen to me. That wouldn't happen. So anyway, we all got excited, obviously. We started to plan. We're like, oh, we need to move from this unit so we can go to another house where we'll have space, all that stuff. Yeah, and then we kept it to ourselves for a little while. But obviously, like I just kept going. I was like, yeah, this is fine. And then I was starting to plan, but like, you know, if we get to this point, I'll book an appointment to see the GP, because then that way I'll probably know that my pregnancy is viable, because I was already like, they already made me start taking prenatals and folate and all that stuff. But unfortunately, that was a very, very short pregnancy. It ended at 5 weeks and 2 days, which if you tell people obviously it's very short. But research has actually shown that like it doesn't matter where on the spectrum of pregnancy loss you lose a pregnancy, the pain is literally the same. So it's, I think you grieve different ideas, like you grieve the fact that like you're about to be a mom, you grieve all the little dreams that you have built in your head, and you just grieve what would have been, you know. But there's also that. And then there's just the physical pain of actually having to go through a miscarriage. I was like, I was not prepared, because I just thought, oh, it will come like any other period, but it didn't. It was just very excruciating that it literally came in waves, like contractions, just, you know. And yeah, that was it. So from then on, eventually I had my surgery, but from like I haven't prepped myself to get back into it again, because then I'm just thinking, I don't know, like you have to work through the trauma of it all and learn to deal with it, before you can continue on. Yeah.
Mm. And I want you to talk about that trauma part, because obviously, even after you lose the baby, your hormones and your body is still acting like it has the baby, right? And it takes time to be able to get back to your old self, right? And in that time, what did you need? Like, how, with the way you were feeling, did you feel, even if you were to talk to people that would understand, or is there something that you needed that you wish people understood so that you can also help people? Because I think there's an assumption that when you tell someone you've lost a baby, they give you 2-3 days, they're expecting you to be back to normal. And they're like, what is she still going on about? You know, like you should just snap out of it, but it doesn't happen like that. So can you tell us a little on that?
I think I think maybe I process things differently, but for the most part, I wanted to be able to work through it by myself without hearing unsolicited advice. Because sometimes you get a lot of, which, like, sometimes I would hear things which I would actually believe. Like, for example, if someone was like, oh, at least we know that you can get pregnant, I truly believed it. I'm like, yes, I know this. I am very grateful that I can get pregnant. Or if someone was like, oh, you know, at least it was only 5 weeks and 2 days, I'm like, I'm grateful, because if I had gone any further, obviously than that, that would mean I'll probably need like a DNC, like where they literally go in and scrape things out of you. And I think that would be more traumatic for me. So in a way, I was very grateful that it happened earlier on. But at the same time, I would have just wanted people to know that you're grieving what could have been an actual human being, you know, like to put that into perspective, to say, I was having thoughts of, I wonder who this person is going to be. And then they just, poof, they're gone. And you blame yourself to some extent. You think, oh, maybe what if I had done this? What if I had, you know, eaten different, exercised more, slept well, did not get stressed? All those things, you think about it to say, oh, and in a spiritual way, you're like, what have I done to the Lord that it is just, you know, all these things are happening to me? So just to be comforted in the sense that just for people to understand that I didn't need many words, but to just be taken care of. But I think being able to just speak up and talk about it, just not to go through it by myself, it really helped me, because I felt like I had somewhere to land on. I had people that had my back. I might not be saying the right things, but I still had people. So support, being heard, being very easy on myself. Like, I didn't go to work because I wasn't going to go to work. But just giving grace to myself really helped me during that time as well.
And I want to ask about Lunga in that time. Is it something you processed together? You processed it differently? And what support did he give you, or what support did you give him? Because the loss is not just yours, it's also for him. So how did you navigate that?
Like, in all honesty, he got it way later, because we talked about it like during the time when I was going through it. I think he wasn't really getting exactly what was happening. And then afterwards, when I was telling him, like, because even, I don't know, I deal with things by myself a lot of the times. I don't tend to easily open up, but with this one, I tried to. But the idea of pain, like the pain that you feel, like your menstrual pain would be very different to what you would feel. Like, that was intense. I've never felt that before. So he didn't realize that it was that intense. But obviously, in hindsight, when we talked about it and explained, he's not much of like an advice giver, but he's very good at just being present, like just being there, like physically being there. Like, we don't have to be, you know, having a serious discussion about anything, but just knowing that if I needed to just turn around on the other side of the bed and vent, he was right there. So I think that was very, very important. But for me, I think it was very helpful to not overload him as well with just constantly being like, oh my goodness, it was such a sad time, like just continuously going, because he is a very like empathetic person, and a lot of the things will take it to heart, especially like if he can't fix it, like he's empathetic, but also like he wants to fix the situation and rectify, but we can't do anything about it. It's already gone. So it was me being very careful that even though I'm grieving and I felt majority of what happened, to be also conscious of my person, that like I'm not gonna overload them with too much that they won't be able to cope and support me as well, so that we're in this together, but not burdening each other too much. So yeah, I think just being there for each other, because sometimes you don't really need much. Just be there, simplify life, and don't try and mask it. Like sit in that grief, let it happen, and then once you're done, you move on.
Thank you so much for that. And I guess it also proves that marriage goes through different seasons, right? And what also helps you grow is going through that process together, sharing your emotions, which is something I think for most of us who grew up in a culture where you couldn't really talk about such things, right? Even what your husband is feeling and what you're feeling, you were just meant to process it yourself and show up the next day as if nothing has happened. And I remember, I don't know if it was December or January, I was reading your status where you were allowing people to know there are some questions you should not be asking couples. And I want you to share on that, because I was like, yo, okay. And I think it's so important, because that is something we overlook, that sometimes people say it without realizing they're hurting someone, but also there are some people who are just nosy like that. But I want you to help those who are sincerely saying it without knowing that it can affect people's marriages and what they're going through. So tell us. I am not even going to say it. I will just allow you to share, because I thought that was really good advice.
Yeah. So I think, I don't know, it's part of our culture. I think as Africans, we do that thing where we want to know. Like, I don't know if it's, like you said, it could be nosiness, and sometimes people are just genuinely curious. For example, before when I was studying, before I got married, I was studying. They're like, oh, when are you going to finish your studies? And then you tell them. And then when I was done, I remember going back to them. They're like, oh, do you have a boyfriend yet? And I was like, yes, I do. And I had people literally trying to set me up with their sons. And then once they realized I was in a relationship, it became, when are you actually going to get married? And then I was like, when we get married. So we did get married, and it started, when are you going to have kids? And usually it doesn't stop there. Once someone has one kid, that they need a brother or sister. And then when they have kids, like, true, you need to have a little company. They can't just, you have a third one, but you need to balance it. It can't just be, 3 people. They need to be able to play with each other. It just goes on. And I think sometimes you go, like, you overlook people's boundaries. Like I was saying in that post, like, sometimes you don't go around asking people how much they make. Because it's very personal to them. Some people are they'll tell you, but then sometimes it's their stuff. Like, you don't need to know that stuff, unless obviously it's warranted, like it's in a professional setting or whatever, and that's what you're talking about. Then I guess maybe. But so some of the questions that I was getting was, especially if we are having. If we're talking about, I remember a particular time we were sitting and there was someone who was already pregnant, and we were talking about their pregnancy and all that stuff. And then someone was like, oh, so when are you getting pregnant? And sadly, it was at the time when I knew I was going to have a miscarriage. So then I was just like, because I'm just thinking, man, only if you knew, but obviously you can't say everyone. I didn't want to say that to someone, but I did get to a point where I'm like, you feel like sometimes you're going to put people in a very awkward situation. Because if I had blurted out at the time, I'm like, oh, just so you know, I am waiting to have my miscarriage. It will be very awkward, like if I would say something like that. But then in a way, it would teach people to not ask questions like that. So you never know what people are going through. Someone could be pregnant and they're still having, a gestational sac still intact there, everything, but like there's no baby breathing or heartbeat or whatever, but they still look pregnant. Like that's what the body will do to you. It would just sometimes take a long time to catch up. You still see a belly, but the baby inside long gone. Sometimes you have people that I've been trying for years. My job has enabled me to see, obviously, when I received the baby, I know the mom's history. So you see people that have had like 8, 9 miscarriages, and this is like their one little precious baby who has survived and is born preterm. That is not a person to ask when they're going to have another child, or like, oh, why did you wait for so long? Or another one was like, oh, what are you waiting for? You're so young, like, that type of thing. But having seen what I have seen, people have health issues, people who have similar health issues to mine, actually, like, endometriosis. Some people have PCOS, polyps, that affect them. And sometimes, which research shows that infertility is actually, 50-50. It can definitely be a male factor with, they have issues and than the girl. So sometimes when you're asking the woman, you put them in a very awkward spot, because then now they have to speak on things that don't concern them. Like they have to put their partner on blast, who might be ready to talk about it, but they might not also, not be ready to talk about it. So learning all these things in the last few years, I was just like, wow, that's not a really good question to ask. Just don't ask people when they're having kids. Some people don't want to have kids because they themselves as kids might have gone through trauma or abuse. So they don't want to be in a place where they produce kids that are going to be vulnerable to situations they themselves have been through. So there's a lot of reasons why people don't want to have kids, or don't have kids, or don't have kids yet, or don't want to have more kids. So just not asking unless someone brings it up. Obviously, if someone brings it up, they're like, oh, by the way, this is what I'm doing. By all means, then you can talk about it because they've offered the information to you. But if someone hasn't offered the information, then just don't go prying into people's business. Let people gain weight in peace. Like I'm here happily gaining weight, and I'm trying to gain more weight.
Oh my God.
Because I love it.
There's a baby.
Yes, honestly, like just don't, so just stay out of their business unless you're in their bubble and they tell you, like, I tell you things that are going on in my life with health issues and stuff. If someone is that open and they're telling you stuff, then obviously you can follow up and say, hey, by the way, how's this going? But if it's a sensitive issue, just leave it. Honestly, let's just stop this thing. Let's stop. Like, it's not on.
Let's stop it, yeah, you're so right. And I guess the good thing is, and now that we're in a culture where we can actually speak about things that a lot of people struggled going through the journey alone, like for someone who had lost a child, not being able to talk about it, not being able to share, to say, today I'm having a bad day, I sincerely need time to myself, and I'm happy that mental health issues are something that is being talked about, and we need to also improve. And I also wanted to say, I like what she shared, to say it's, if someone talks to you, that you're able to then go on the conversation. I have people close to me who've lost babies. I have someone really close to me who's had 8 to 9 miscarriages, and we've gotten to a point where we don't talk about it. And I remember also learning that sometimes we just want to say something, and I'm an empath like your husband, so I feel things, I will literally cry with you, like I've gone through it, And then it hurts to be shut out when a person is going through that process. But I had to learn that I also needed to know my place. If someone doesn't want me there with them, especially since I've got my own 3 kids, it means seeing my kids was also a reminder for them, you know, to say, she's got babies, what's wrong with me? And most of my friends have shared with me that the hardest thing they had to go through, that they kept asking themselves, is what is wrong with me? You know, Anna's had a baby. Anna has issues. I know I was also told growing up that I couldn't have babies, but God allowed me to have babies. And some of them would say, okay, so God answered your prayers when you had been told you can't have babies. So why can't he answer mine, you know? And sometimes we start conversations that we can't end because now questions are coming to us. And you're like, okay, when did I start this conversation? But I just wanted people to learn from you and what you've been through. And because you see it every single day, where some moms leave their children, their babies, when they give birth, and they come back and they're told, I'm sorry, your baby's not there anymore. But I wanted to end by you sharing with us the importance of not going through this journey by yourself. I know a lot of people don't believe in counseling. I work with couples, and sometimes they tell me when they have a problem in their home, while they're having a conversation, and the spouse says to them, how much will we need for you to go for this counseling? And they find maybe it's $10 a session, $15. They'll be like, Asha, you need to go through it yourself. Don't understand what will happen in the long run if someone doesn't heal from what they are going through. So can you share with us the importance of also getting help if you need it?
So for me, like I told you earlier on, like I process things internally by myself, but then at the same time, I also recognize the importance of reaching out. It's just super, super important. I think one of the things that we probably would be scared to reach out and tell people something like that is because I think we put too much value in the fact that maybe now they're gonna think I'm not what's the word, a complete woman or whatever. Do you know what I mean? They're like, oh, something is wrong with her. She can't have kids, or she will have miscarriages, or it can go just a plethora of directions. It could literally be like, oh, you don't have enough faith. You didn't believe the fact that this child is going to stay, or you must be doing something in your life, like your health-wise. You just have to be doing something that's ruining it for you, or you know, something else. So people get scared to open up because there's a fear of judgment, which is why it's important to find yourself. It can be one person, it can be a group of people that you're gonna talk to. I had, you know, my own, actually, no, I didn't tell my dad, but my mom, Lunga's mom, Lunga, you, I talked to my auntie and my one other person, I think. Those were the people that were very, very constant in the time, and I kept them in real time when things are actually happening, because I felt like I needed that. People to just tell while things are happening. And then some friends, which are close, I told them maybe after a month to say, hey, by the way, this and that happened. That's why I sort of like, you know, disappeared and that kind of thing. But it helps to be able to reach out. If you feel like you can't tell people that are going to be biased in your situation, you always have, you know, counselors. I've had to utilize services like Beyond Blue before, because all that and other factors in life ended up to me dealing with depression. And I reached out and they're always there. Like literally you can call them anytime and they'll be there to have a chat with you. They can give you links to so many resources. If you don't want to present to a physical place, you will be linked to somewhere where someone will be able to talk to you for long periods of time if you need it. Find a counselor, find a therapist. If you don't like your therapist, move, find another one. You know, because I experienced the same thing where I was gonna see this therapist, but we're just not vibing. Like I was just like, yeah, not for me. So you just move on, you know, and you're allowed to do that. But for me, that's very, very important. I don't think I would have been able to process it just by myself. And then allow yourself to grieve. Obviously, you know, there's the stages of grief. Allow yourself to go through that. No one wants you to be a tough cookie. Like, that's so overrated. Allow yourself to feel, yeah, you know, feel what you need to feel, but then also make plans to be able to say, okay, this is what happened. Here's how I need to move on. And for me, just accountability to myself. Like, I have like a planner that I keep with me almost everywhere I go, because it helps me plan my life. Like, I plan my life according to my work roster, obviously, like in a week. And then I figure out, like, here's what I'm gonna exercise. I like swimming, so that's my thing, because I don't like jumping up and down on the ground. Like, why must I suffer?
Girl, no. You tried it, hey? I thought you were consistent.
No, the jumping up and down on the ground, like, it's just not for me. Like, I can't. So I swim. So that's my thing, and I make sure I plot it throughout the week, and it's part of self-care, honestly. So you do that and allow yourself to have rest days. You know, you don't have to be busy all the time. Allow your body to rest. Your mind needs to rest. Your body needs to rest. I become that person that is obsessed with seeing the sunset. Like, if I could go every single day, I go. Like, we have a lookout where you can see the whole town of where I live. I go there, take photos, sit there, journal, you know, go out, like, live your life. And then if you're going to try and have kids later on in the future, also do your research, you know, learn about your body. Obviously, you shouldn't be on birth control and all that stuff, but learn about your body, figure out get your bloods done, figure out what you need to be eating, but don't get obsessive. Just live your life. You know, it hurts losing a potential child, but at the same time, you're still there, you're still living. So you don't need to die with the baby that passed away as well. There's still you to live. And my motto that I tell myself is, when we do start to plan having kids again, I want my children to have a mom who is stable. I'm not going to be like a strong mom who's like a hero, but someone who is grounded in themselves, who understands feelings, who understands, you know, themselves, and who understands just the importance of being there for yourself. Because if you're not there for yourself, nobody's going to be there for you, you know, obviously. Like, no one is going to force you to have a good life. So, take care of yourself, and obviously continue getting help if you need to. See your GP, see older people. Like, there's just so many human resources that we don't use. And stand up for yourself as well. Like, stand up and use boundaries, you know, verbal ones. I know for me now, I can answer the question if it is asked, of, you know, when we're going to have kids. But there was a time I just used to say, I'm sorry, I don't answer that question. And that was literally it. Yeah, but I would have to tell them to say, I don't think I can answer that question. Or when God says, you know, that God hasn't told me yet that I need to start having kids, so I'm happy with myself. And also another thing that is very, very important to me is to realize that whether it's going to happen again or whether it doesn't, whether we're going to have kids, whether we're not going to have kids again, we are enough. Like, we are just a complete family. Like, the two of us, we are very, very complete. And right now we're making actual progress or steps to be very, very intentional in our relationship and just enjoy life with the two of us first. Whether that means there's going to be another child or not, I don't know. That's scary. But whether there will be or not, just to know that you're complete as a woman by yourself, whether your uterus decides it will work or not, or whether you have kids or not, you guys are just a complete unit. And that's how I'm thriving. I believe I'm like thriving. I'm living my life. My life is good right now.
I love that. And to be honest, just seeing what you've been through and seeing where you are now, I can truly say you have made progress. I don't think you completely heal like that, but it's a journey, like you are mentioning. And you put boundaries to make sure when you need to remove yourself from people, you're not afraid to say that. And I think that is something that we're always afraid to say, I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable. But like you mentioned, we can't be from an empty cup. And I really hope that for those who've watched, who've gone through the same journey as Boucher, or who have been around people who've gone through this, will be able to help people in a better way and not be selfish. If people tell you in this season, I need to be away from people, there's a quotation I always like that says, be kind to someone. You do not know what they're going through or the battles that they are fighting. So all of us are going through something. And if we were kind, we would make the world a better place. And I hope just by watching this, like she mentioned, if someone isn't married, don't be asking them when they're going to get married. Marriage is not an achievement. Once they get married, don't bring a family planning for them. Allow people to enjoy their relationship and get to that point where they say we're doing it for ourselves and not for people. Because I've seen one of the ladies was sharing with me the other day, I actually didn't want to have a baby, but because of what family was saying to me, I had the baby, and I don't even have an attachment with the baby. So it is just so important that when we do decide to have a baby, make sure that you're doing it for you as a couple, not for the people that are around you, because you won't enjoy the journey of being a parent. Thank you so much, Boucher. Are there any final words before we end?
I think my thing, just in general, that I'm such an advocate for is just, just see your doctors. Go and see them, and don't ever take the answer of, oh, this is normal or this and that. For example, the statistics show that, like, I think endometriosis or all these things sometimes take something like 10 years to be diagnosed. So you have been put through the ringer and given contraceptives and pain meds and all that to just mask pain. So it's very, 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 very important to get that checked out, but also just take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. You only have one body and to live in, and that's all you get. So take care of it.
So true. Thank you so much, Boucher, for doing this video with me. And I hope I can bully you again into doing another one sometime. But thank you, everyone. If you've come to the end of this video, then thank you so much for watching. As I've mentioned, this channel is meant to help as many people as possible. So if you know someone who's going through this journey, please share with them and allow them to also learn. We can do more together than we can do alone. And we want to make sure people know that they are never alone. So thank you so much, and bye.